Hey guys, tonight we begin with a chill that slips in under the door and settles in your bones. You are not a lord, not a knight, not even a tradesman. You are a medieval peasant, and it's January. The cold is not just outside. It's in your bed, in your breath, in the walls. Your home is a small timber frame covered in wattle and daub with a roof thatched thick with straw. The frost doesn't care. It forms anyway, curling across the inside of the thatch. When you wake, your blanket crunches. The frost has claimed it too. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink your eyes open. It's still dark. It's always dark this time of year. Morning comes late and leaves early. Your body aches before you move, before you lift the wool blanket crusted with last night's frost. The bed is a wooden frame stuffed with straw. A goose feather pillow would be a joke. Your pillow is a folded tunic. You've slept in your undertunic and leggings not out of laziness, but because to undress would be inviting death to join you. You reach toward the small hearth in the center of your home. The coals are dull, faintly red, and barely breathing. You whisper a prayer to Saint Bridget and toss a splinter of dry oak into the pit. With luck it catches. With luck the smoke will rise through the hole in the roof, not curl around the rafters and settle in your lungs. The frost is on the inside of the walls. You see it tracing the edges of the timber frame filigree of death's fingers brushing across your daub. You shiver. You're not outside. This is inside. Your breath floats in the air. The inside temperature is just above freezing or perhaps below it. You wouldn't know the number. Nobody counts degrees here. You just know it by the way your hands feel stiff before you've made a fist. By the way the dog that sleeps in the corner has curled into a shape smaller than a bread loaf. You pull on a wool-over tunic. It smells like wood smoke and salt. You slept in the clothes you wore yesterday, and they'll serve today too. You find your clogs, wood and rawhide. They're near the door, which was a mistake. They are stiff, frozen. You tap them together, and ice breaks off in flakes. You open the door. The moor beyond is white and flat. A low fog crawls over the earth. There is no sun, just a dull gray sky that makes the world feel like it's waiting for something. You step out for firewood. Each footstep crunches. The frost hasn't melted in days. It won't for weeks. You keep your kindling in a lean-to under a piece of canvas that froze solid 3 nights ago. You gather sticks birch if you're lucky. It burns hot and fast. If not, wet oak will do. Smoke heavy, but it'll last longer. You take only enough for a few hours. The pile is shrinking. You think about rationing. You always think about rationing. You bring the wood in past the children who are still bundled under wool and fur. The baby has a bonnet. The older one clutches a rag-stuffed doll. They do not stir. Their breaths are shallow like hibernating squirrels. You kneel again by the hearth. This is your job. Always the fire. You stack the wood, slowly feed it carefully. It catches. The flames flicker blue at the base orange at the tips. You feel heat touch your knees. it doesn't last. There are cracks in the wall not wide enough to see daylight, but wide enough to let wind through. You plug them with straw dipped in clay. It hardens fast, shrinks faster, and falls out after a week, but it helps. Outside the well is frozen. You'll fetch ice instead. You break it with a mallet and carry it inside in a bucket. You set it by the hearth. It will melt eventually. You need water to cook. The last of the onions, dried beans, salt pork if you're lucky. Gruel if you're not. You can hear the neighbor's rooster. A pitiful crow, more cough than song. He's still alive. That's something. His coop is a shed made from repurposed fence posts. The hens huddle for warmth. Eggs are rare in winter. When they come, they're treasured. Boiled and split 4 ways. You step outside again. The thatch on your roof glitters. Frost crystals grow like spines on a hedgehog's back. You run a hand across it. Your skin sticks for a moment, then peels away red. The cart is covered. You don't need it now. The fields are dead. The earth is iron. You won't plow again until March, maybe April. The rye stores are holding for now. You check the bin, still half full. If you ration bread to once a day, it'll last. Maybe. You take a moment to stretch. Your joints pop like ice cracking on a lake. You remember your grandfather's story of the winter of the black wind. How it froze the river so hard the monks walked across it with a cart of wine. How the fish froze upright in the shallows. Historians still argue whether that winter actually happened or whether the old man just liked scaring children. But you believe it. You feel the edge of it now, in your knees, in your chest. You return inside. The fire's higher. The kids are stirring. You'll start the porridge soon. The oats are low, but there's still a little barley meal. You mix it with water salt, maybe a sprig of thyme if any's left dry above the hearth. The steam rises slowly. You huddle near it. Your hands open to catch the warmth like a sinner at church holding out for redemption. It smells bland, but it's hot. You hear a knock. It's Thomas from 3 doors down. He stands with his cloak drawn up, his nose red, and he doesn't come in. He just says, "Will's chimney's not smoking." You both know what that might mean. You nod. You'll check later. Or maybe not. You know what you'll find. The cold doesn't scream. It just waits. Quiet. Still. Patient. You look at the children bundled together, their cheeks flushed with the strange heat of deep cold. The fire hisses behind you, still small but alive. You gather your second layer. A thicker wool tunic, hand-spun and patched. It itches in the elbows and underarms, but it holds heat like a stone oven. You tug it down over your waist, then wrap a sash to trap the warmth. It's not fashion. It's insulation. You reach for your outer cloak. It's not fancy rough weave dyed with old walnut husks, but it drapes heavy over your shoulders. The corners are stiff from moisture and smoke. You pull it close with a bone pin shaped like a twisted twig. Your hands are already red fingertips pale. The gloves were lost last winter, dropped somewhere between the woodshed and the compost pit. You never found them. You wrap your scarf. It's just a strip of linen, stained and unraveling. But once around the neck, tucked into the tunic, it blocks the worst of the wind. You take a breath through it. It smells like stew. and a little like mildew. You don't mind. The boots go on next. Leather turned hard as slate. The laces are frayed rope. Inside you've lined them with sheep's wool, your own harvest spun clumsily. You wedge dry straw around your feet. It crunches as you walk, but it's better than frostbite. You add a final piece, a square of rabbit fur tucked between tunic and belt right over your stomach. You call it your hearthstone. It doesn't do much, but somehow it helps. Now you're dressed. Not stylish, not even comfortable, but layered, like bark, like a cabbage. That's how you survive this season, one layer at a time. You step outside again. The wind is up. It cuts through the trees and slaps your face like a rude uncle. You pull the hood up, shadowing your eyes. The sun tries to rise. It fails. The sky turns gray, then a paler gray. That's what counts as dawn now. Your neighbor Edith shuffles past, pulling a sled with a single jug of water. She nods tight-lipped. You nod back. No words. It's too early, and your face is too frozen to form syllables. You both know the drill. Conserve breath, conserve calories, conserve hope. The animals are stirring. Your cow, thick-coated and dull-eyed, stands in the lean-to chewing what little hay remains. Her breath fogs in clouds that hang around her like lazy ghosts. You pat her flank. It's warmer than your hands. She blinks slowly. You check the trough. Ice again. Thick this time. You break it with the back of an axe. The water beneath is brown, but it's not frozen. That's enough. Your chickens scratch in the straw, their feet barely visible. They squawk softly, offended that the cold has returned again, as if you invited it. One pecks your boot. You move on. You see young Henry across the lane. He's maybe 12. Skinny as a willow switch and bundled like a rag doll. He's cutting kindling with a blade that's too dull. You watch him for a moment. He sees you and shrugs. You shrug back. That's the language of winter. You head to the edge of the field. The ground is iron. Each step crunches like biting into stale bread. You remember spring barely. The furrows were soft then. Earth smelled like worms and rain. Now it smells like nothing. Frozen dirt doesn't smell. You kneel. Push your gloved hand into the crust. You feel nothing. That's the problem. This land won't speak again until the thaw. You rise slowly. Your knees creak. Somewhere inside your wool layers, your joints whisper protests. You ignore them. You head back inside. As you unbundle, the warmth hits you not much but noticeable. The fire's grown. The children are sitting up. Their breath fogs the air. You tell them to add more straw to the boots. You help the smallest one tuck in the ends. They ask if they can stay near the fire all day. You say maybe. The truth is yes. There's no work today. Not outside. Not unless you want to dig through frozen manure or chip ice off the pig pen. Most days you pick small tasks. Mending a fence rail inside. Sharpening the sickle by firelight. You save the serious labor for thaw days. Your spouse is stirring now. They stretch, groan, and wrap a cloth around their head. It's not for fashion. It's to catch the condensation from their breath before it drips back onto their neck. They say, "Still no thaw." You just shake your head. You eat slowly. Porridge cooled just enough not to burn. You take it with a pinch of salt. Maybe dried berries if there are any left. You chew thoughtfully, slowly, like a cow working cud. not out of reverence, just to stretch the meal. There's a saying in your village, layer the belly like you layer your back, meaning fill your gut to trap warmth from the inside. You eat for heat now, not for pleasure. You give the baby a crust soaked in broth. She gums it without complaint. She's too young to remember spring or sweetness. You sip ale. It's sour, thin, and barely fermented. But it's better than well water this time of year. That water tastes like old metal and dust. The day inches forward. The light brightens by degrees so small you might miss them. But by mid-morning the room has gone from gray to less gray. You call that sunlight. You add another log to the fire. The pile is shrinking. You'll have to gather more soon. Maybe tomorrow. You think about the layers again. Not just clothes, but habits. Everything is layered now. Layered meals, layered chores, layered prayers. Strip too much away and the cold gets in. Historians still argue whether peasants in this era understood the science of heat loss, convection, conduction, radiation. But you understand it in your bones. You don't sit on the floor. You sit on a sheepskin or straw or a bundled cloth. You don't stand in drafts. You lean against warm bodies. You don't breathe fast. You breathe slow. To keep the fire in your chest from dimming. Sometimes the dog crawls into your lap, not out of affection, but for survival. You let it stay. In the corner, someone sneezes. You turn quickly. A sneeze isn't just a sneeze. Not in January. You wrap a cloth around your face. Not because it'll help, just because it feels like doing something. You spend the rest of the morning near the fire untangling string, rewrapping it around the spindle. The youngest tries to catch the ends, giggling. The noise is a surprise. Joy still exists, apparently. You add one more tunic. Not because you're colder, but because the wind is rising again. You hear it whispering against the walls, like it's searching for cracks. It'll find them. The fire doesn't last on its own. You feed it like it's a hungry mouth. A stick here, a chunk of peat if you're lucky. You place each piece like you're playing a game you can't afford to lose. And when the flames flicker just right, when the smoke leans toward the roof and not toward your eyes, you feel like you've won something. A prize measured in degrees of heat. Maybe 2 or 3, if that. You crouch low, the warmth brushing your fingers. Your back is cold. Always cold. No fire touches your spine unless you spin slowly like a roasting turnip. You turn. Let the heat kiss the other side. Then turn again. Like meat. This is your version of luxury. The hearth is the heart of the house, but it is not central. It's off to one side near the wall, where the stones can absorb the heat and return it slowly through the night. You remember helping lay those stones? Flat, uneven things that bit your hands as you pressed them into the dirt. No chimney, just a smoke hole in the thatch. When it works, the air is sharp. When it doesn't, your eyes water and your throat tastes like soot. The children sit near you, knees to chests. They poke the fire with thin sticks, not for warmth, but for fun. You stop them after one stick catches too quickly. Fun is dangerous here. You place a heavy iron pot on the hook. It swings gently above the flames. Today you'll try to soften some root vegetables. A parsnip, half a turnip, maybe some dried nettles if they're not too brittle. It's not a stew. It's something less. A soup that barely counts as a liquid. But it's hot. That's enough. Your spouse gathers ashes into a clay dish, sprinkles them near the doorway. An old trick, supposed to ward off spirits who ride the wind. The ash doesn't do much for warmth, but it does make footprints easier to track. If someone comes by, you'll know. You reach for the fire poker. Not iron too expensive, but an old blackened stick smooth from use. You stir the coals. They hiss, flare, and settle again. The rhythm is meditative, like prayer. You've stopped speaking them aloud. Your voice is too precious. Above you, the smoke finds its way out. Mostly, some settles in the beams. The thatch turns black in places. You scrape it when you remember. Not because of fire hazard. That's not your worry. You scrape it so the smoke has less to cling to, less to fall on your supper. Your stool is a flat log sawed and smoothed. You sit with your back to the wall. It's always damp. It sweats in winter. You've tried to dry it with cloth, but the damp returns. Always. It never truly dries until June. Sometimes you dream of a second hearth, one in each corner. It's a ridiculous dream, but you dream it anyway. The firelight dances on the ceiling. The patterns in the thatch sway like ghosts stretching. You remember your mother telling you that spirits live in smoke, that they rise only when the fire is honest, whatever that means. You add more wood. Birch this time. It burns faster, but the light is nice, soft, golden. Like butter, if you remember what that tastes like. Your spouse hums, a song from the next village over. One they learned years ago while trading goose feathers for a linen sheet. The tune curls in the warm air. The children hum along. You don't. You just listen. Your voice is tired. Outside, the wind picks up. You hear it press against the door like an unwanted guest. The latch holds. You hope the hinges don't freeze again. You remember last winter when the hearth went out. It was night. A mistake. The woodpile had run dry. You'd burned old tools, even half of the wooden stool, just to get enough flame to start again. You never recovered that stool. Now you sit on a stone block. Historians still debate whether medieval peasants built fires that lasted all night or kept watch in shifts. You know the truth. You stay up. One person always near the fire, always listening. Flame doesn't keep itself. You remember falling asleep once, just once. The coals died. Woke to frost on the blanket and the dog whimpering in its sleep. That won't happen again. Your fingers ache. You press them against the iron pot briefly. Just a second. Too long and you'll burn. But for that moment, the heat flows into your knuckles like forgiveness. In the corner, you keep a basket of bark chips. They light fast. You ration them like treasure. You learned the hard way not to waste them. One fell into the ash pile last week. You stared at it like it was a coin dropped in a well. Your feet rest near the hearth. Not too close. The last pair of boots still show black scorch lines where the leather blistered. You say nothing when the children crowd too close. They'll learn like you did, fast, with a red line across the ankle. You feel warmth now, not much, but enough to stretch your legs and not tremble. The air around the fire is different, thicker somehow. You live in this radius, a circle of survival no wider than a cartwheel. Everything beyond that circle is cold. You hear the neighbor's door creak, someone out for water, or wood, or worse. You don't ask. Everyone minds their own hearth. The pot hisses, a slow bubble from beneath. You stir it gently. The turnip has softened, barely. You let it cook longer. Let the steam fill the room. There's a smell now, not good, but full. It smells like effort. That's all you ask. The dog yawns, stretches across the floor tail to ashes. You nudge him back. He grunts. You share the heat, but not equally. The wind howls again, this time louder. The door shifts in its frame. The latch thuds. You glance at the ceiling. A puff of smoke drifts sideways. You check the fire. Still strong. You toss in a sprig of dried rosemary, just for the smell. It burns quickly, but for a few seconds, the air is sweet. You let yourself smile, just once. Then it's gone. You wake in the night because something moved. Not loud, just the shift of air, maybe a foot scraping straw. You blink into the dark. Can't see your hand. You feel for the fire's glow instead. It's still there. Dim orange, weak, but there. You rise quietly. The hearth is only embers now, softly pulsing like the heartbeat of a sleeping animal. You crouch, blow gently. A spark stirs. You add a curl of bark, a whisper of straw. Another breath. The fire licks the fuel like a tongue waking from sleep. You smile with your teeth closed. You reach for a dry log buried deep in the pile to keep it from the damp. It's heavy. You lower it into place. It groans as it settles. The flame catches, slowly, then holds. Behind you, the others still sleep. Some on the bench, others on the floor. No one sleeps in a bed alone. Too cold, too risky. A child stirs and wraps an arm around a sibling. Your spouse snores gently, mouth open. You notice their feet peek out from the blanket. You tuck them in without a word. You lay back down closer to the fire this time. Too close, and you'll sweat, then freeze. Balance is everything. You lie still, but your eyes don't close. The warmth is uneven, creeping only across one side of your body. Then something shifts again. You hear it now. A soft grunt. A snort. The goat. She's awake, pacing slowly by the wall. Her hooves click gently on the dirt floor. She isn't anxious, just cold. She settles again near the far corner close to the fire's edge. The pig is quieter, tucked in straw, snoring softly. It smells like manure and warmth. You'll take it. The dog shifts under the bench nose, twitching. The chickens rustle above you in their box loft heads tucked beneath wings. One drops something. You ignore it. Cleaning comes later. You pull your blanket tighter. Its wool thick with the smell of wood smoke and years of sweat. You wrapped it in dried rosemary 2 seasons ago. It helped for a while. Now it just smells tired. You feel warmth near your feet. Someone's leg. Maybe the eldest boy. Or your spouse. It doesn't matter. You don't move. Shared warmth is a currency. You spend it carefully. Historians still argue whether medieval families truly brought animals indoors each winter. You know the truth. Yes, always. Not because it was cozy, because it worked. The heat of a pig is worth more than a blanket. The goat's breath adds degrees to the air. The dog is a furnace wrapped in fleas. You endure it all because it keeps you alive. No one talks about the noises, the grunts, the huffs, the rustling. You get used to it. The only sound that startles you now is silence. That's when you check to see who's still breathing. You stare up at the rafters. The roof is dry tonight. No snow melting through the thatch. That's a gift. You'll still shake it down tomorrow. You have to. A heavy snow can collapse a roof. That happened to old Thomas last year. They never rebuilt. You roll onto your side. A rat scurries in the wall. You listen. Count the seconds until it stops. That's normal. It means food is still here. When the rats go quiet, you worry. The air is sharp near your nose. You pull the blanket up higher. The fire crackles once, spits a spark. You glance. Still fine. You sleep again. When you wake, the sun isn't up. But the fire is down. You rise slowly. Your body aches. You slept on your side too long. Your hip throbs. You check the embers. Still red. Just barely. You feed it again. Whispered breath. The goat watches you. She knows the routine. You stand and stretch. Your spine sounds like old rope. You wrap a scarf over your head. Not for modesty, for warmth. You walk to the door. Open it slowly. Snow has drifted against it. You push. It groans open. The wind hits your face like a slap. You take it. You step outside to use the latrine. It's barely a shelter. More wind than wall. You finish quickly. The cold bites. You return inside shivering. Everyone's still asleep, except the dog. He watches you with one eye open. You add wood to the fire. The room brightens. The air shifts. Breakfast is the same. Root mash. A crust of barley bread. You share it out. No one complains. There's nothing to say. Afterward, you clean. You move the animals out into the yard. Just briefly. They need air. You sweep the floor with a branch broom. Push straw toward the edges. You find a half-frozen egg under the chicken box. You hold it like treasure. Add it to the pot for tonight. You scatter ash across the doorway again. Not for spirits today, for grip. The children help gather more wood. You show them where the logs are driest. They load sleds with care. You take pride in their silence. They've learned what matters. You pause. Watch your breath curl in the morning air. The goat bleats once. You nod. The fire is burning again. Stronger this time. A good start. You close the door. The animals return to their corners. You tuck the egg away. The hearth crackles behind you. You sit. Fold your legs. Wrap your arms. And breathe. The bed is not yours. Not truly. It belongs to everyone who shares it tonight. Sometimes that's 3. Sometimes that's... Other times it's 6. You don't complain. You're lucky to have a frame at all. A wooden structure creaking with every shift held together by pegs and rope. The ropes sag. You tighten them when you can. Hence the saying, sleep tight. You smirk because it's not a joke anymore. The straw mattress smells faintly of sweat feet and old milk. You beat it with a stick once a week, less to fluff it and more to chase out any vermin nesting inside. You think you got them all. Probably. You lie down slowly. The others are already under the heavy wool cover. Scratchy, uneven, patched. A quilt of necessity. No matching patterns. Just whatever pieces of fabric you could find. Old tunics. Trousers too worn to repair. One square came from a borrowed cloak you never returned. Feet touch yours. One is icy. You flinch. They pull back. The fire from earlier warms only the first few feet of the room. Out here at the bed's edge, you breathe steam. You shift. Try to find a place where the bed doesn't press back. There isn't one. A child turns beside you, elbow to your ribs. You grunt. They don't wake. You don't push them away. This is winter sleeping. Close. Tangled. Breath mixing in the dark. You can't sleep with your mouth open. Too much steam gathers around your nose. Too much cold enters your throat. You curl into yourself. Protect the center, the middle of your body where the warmth still lives. The bed is too short. Your legs bend. Feet dangle. You try to wedge them between warmer bodies. One accepts. The other kicks. A compromise is reached. You remember the bed in your parents' cottage. Same shape, same size. The night you were allowed to sleep in it for the first time you were 7. You'd never felt so honored or so crowded. Historians often question whether families truly slept head to toe. You don't. You live it. It makes sense. Everyone turns in their sleep. This way you get a foot in the face instead of a knee to the stomach. It's better. Somehow. Someone breathes heavily beside you. Not snoring, just loud. You wonder if they're dreaming. You hope so. You haven't dreamed in days. Sleep is too shallow. The cold keeps it near the surface. A chicken rustles in the rafters. You ignore it. You hear a drip. A slow one. Somewhere near the wall. Condensation, maybe. Or a leak in the thatch. You should check it. Later. Tomorrow. Maybe. You pull the blanket higher. It smells like turnip. You don't care. Turnip is better than mold. You shift again. The bed frame groans. Someone grunts in reply. You freeze. Wait for them to settle. They do. You think of the lords in their castles, their feather beds, their tapestries, their braziers of burning charcoal, and still they complain. Always too drafty, always too stiff. You'd laugh if your teeth didn't chatter. Someone coughs, dry, short, then silence. You count to 20. They don't cough again. Good. The dog jumps on to the end of the bed. You let him. He curls around your feet, adds warmth, smells like damp wool and whatever he rolled in last week. The child next to you mumbles. Their hand finds yours. Small, cold. You wrap your fingers around it. They relax. The bed shifts again. Someone gets up to check the fire. A blur of movement. Then the soft glow of coals. A few minutes later, warmth creeps in like a timid guest. You almost drift off. Then a toe slides between your ribs. You suck in air. Not pain, just surprise. They're dreaming again. You reposition. Press your spine to the edge of the frame. Not comfortable, but effective. You close your eyes. Your shoulders ache. The bed isn't level. One corner dips. You've stuffed straw under the leg. It didn't help. You hear another voice, whispered, someone talking in their sleep. You listen. Snow's too deep. A pause. Don't wake the lamb. Then nothing. You lie still. Eventually, sleep finds you. It always does. Eventually. You dream of spring, of sleeping alone, of space, of silence. Then the rooster crows. Early. Always early. The first sliver of gray light creeps into the room. Not enough to warm, just enough to see your breath. The others begin to stir. Slowly. A groan, a cough, a muttered complaint. You rise first, always first. The blanket falls back. Cold slaps your skin. You dress quickly. Same tunic. Same leggings. Same boots stuffed with hay. You nod to your spouse. They nod back. No words needed. You step outside. Relieve yourself behind the shed. Your breath rises in clouds. The sky's still dull. Inside the bed is emptying. Slowly. One child still clings to the warmth. You let them have 5 more minutes. You stoke the fire. Add wood. Feed the beast. Another day begins. Same as the last. Same as tomorrow. You start with a bowl. Wood. Carved. Cracked at the edge, but still holding together. You ladle something into it that could be called soup if the word were feeling generous. Really, it's boiled barley water with some onion peel, a few root slivers, and the skin off yesterday's broth. You sit cross-legged near the fire. You hold the bowl close to your chest, not for eating, but for warming your fingers. You blow across the surface. Steam curls up in small threads. You sip. It's hot, thin, salty in a vague, tired way. But the warmth spreads down your throat and into your chest. You feel it reach your belly. That's what you need. In winter, food is not pleasure. It's insulation. You eat slowly. Every bite is a calculation. You're not full, not really, but the heat in your stomach buys you a few more hours without shivering. Historians agree on this. The peasant winter diet was heavy on the same ingredients: barley beans, dried peas, root vegetables, maybe a little dried pork if you were lucky, last slaughter season. There is debate about how much meat you actually got. You know the truth, not much. Not unless someone died and the family owed you. You scrape the bottom of the bowl with your spoon. A bit of grit. You chew anyway. Could be barley husk. Could be dirt from the pot. Doesn't matter. There's bread, too. Stale, of course. You dip it in the soup to soften it. Otherwise, it'll crack a tooth. You saw that happen once. A molar split clean. The man lived with it for weeks until the pain went black behind his eyes. You chew slowly. The crust softens. You swallow. Your spouse hands you a piece of boiled turnip. No words. You take it. Bite. It's bland. Almost sweet in places. Mostly just dense. But it fills a corner of your belly that soup can't touch. The children eat less. They complain more. You let them. They're growing. You'll make sure they get a little extra when you can. The dog stares at you. You toss him a scrap. He catches it mid-air. You feel warmer already. By midday, you've burned off the breakfast warmth. You go out to chop wood. Each swing of the axe is a duel. Cold air versus muscle. You win. For now. You return. Shake the snow from your shoulders. The heat from earlier gone. But you've earned more soup. This time it's thicker. Someone added barley from the storage pot. You count the grains as you chew. It helps you eat slower. Later you chew dried apples. Tough as leather. Sweetness faint but real. You savor it. Let it sit on your tongue. A treat. You remember last summer. The orchard bent low with fruit. You dried what you could. Traded some. Stored the rest in a barrel layered with straw. It's almost empty now. The children play with a frozen beet like a toy. You tell them to stop. They don't listen. You let them. Dinner is a feast compared to breakfast. A handful of dried peas soaked and boiled. They've gone mushy, but the texture is comforting. Protein, you tell yourself. You don't know the word, but your body does. You fry a pancake in animal fat, more flour than anything else. You divide it into equal parts. It smells like warmth and old grease. You inhale deeply. That's the smell of survival. Tonight you eat slowly. No one rushes. The fire crackles. You eat close to it. It's the only time of day that feels like a pause. There's no dessert. But you chew on a clove if one's handy. It burns your mouth a little. That's how you know it's working. Keeps the breath fresh, maybe. Keeps the cold away, definitely not. Some nights there's nothing left. No soup, no bread. Just hot water with a pinch of salt and a whisper of dried herb. You sip it like it's wine. One neighbor boils onion skins for color, adds turnip leaves for bulk. He calls it Lord's broth. You laughed when he said it, but you tasted it once. It was fine. Better than snow. Sometimes the priest visits. He brings dried fish from the monastery cellar. You share. He tells stories about saints who fasted in the desert. You don't tell him that your fasts aren't voluntary. One evening, someone brings a pie. Meat. Real meat. You don't ask questions. You take a piece, chew slowly. The meat is dark, stringy, not quite pork. You chew faster. Best not to think. Later that night, you find a feather in your teeth. The cold isn't the only danger. Hunger turns the mind wild. You've seen people hoard beans like gold. Seen old men argue over half a loaf. Seen children fight over broth skins. But you've also seen sharing. A widow handing over her last onion. A boy giving his bread to his sister. A stranger placing 2 turnips on your doorstep without a word. It's not about fullness. It's about function. You eat to move. You eat to sleep. You eat to feel your fingers in the morning. They say the stomach shrinks in winter. You believe it, but the hunger stays the same. You lie in bed with your belly buzzing faintly. Not empty, but not content. That's the sweet spot. Too full and you sweat, then freeze. Too empty and you shake. This is balance. This is the medieval menu. Soup, bread, roots, hope, and the occasional mystery pie. The wind comes before the snow. Always. It starts as a moan, low and distant, curling through the trees like something lost. Then it rises, becomes a whistle through the thatch, a rattle at the shutter, a breath down your collar. You pull your cloak tighter. You're outside now, just for a moment. Gathering kindling from under the wood pile. The snow hasn't started, but you smell it. Sharp, clean, heavy with promise. You move quickly. The fire must be ready before nightfall. Once the snow begins, it doesn't stop politely. It arrives all at once like a guest with no manners and too much luggage. You load the kindling in your arms. Dry bark, broken twigs, pine cones if you're lucky. The kind that catch quick. You walk back across the yard. Your boots crunch over frost. The dog follows ears back. Even he senses it coming. Inside, the hearth waits. You kneel. Arrange the firewood like a puzzle. Bark first, then sticks, then the thicker cuts. You strike flint to steel. The spark lands. You breathe gently. Smoke curls upward. The fire lives. You sit back watching it catch. The children shuffle near. Not too close. They've learned. A blister is a week of regret. Snow begins after sundown. First 1 flake, then 100. Then the sky turns white. You hear it before you see it. The hush. That special silence where sound disappears under softness. You bolt the door. The wind picks up. The walls groan. The roof shudders. Cold slips through every gap and knot in the wood. You've stuffed moss into the cracks, but it's not perfect. Nothing is. You toss another log on the fire. Tonight is not for sleeping. It's for enduring. You wrap the children in wool. One by one. Layer over layer. They look like bundles, not people. That's fine. You'd wrap them in the curtains if you had any. Your spouse prepares the sleeping corner. Blankets over straw, straw over dirt. You lay down furs if you have them. Rabbit mostly. They still smell like the woods. Historians still argue whether medieval homes had upper floors for sleeping. Yours doesn't. Just rafters too low to stand in. You look up. The chickens are already tucked in. You envy them. The fire snaps. Sparks leap. You cover the hearth with the iron screen. Not to stop the flames, but the embers. They bounce like tiny devils if you let them. You blow out the rushlight. Not that it helps much. It just lets the firelight stand alone. The room glows orange. Shadows crawl across the walls like tired ghosts. You pull your cloak tighter. Outside, the snow piles high. Inside, you sleep in shifts. 1 hour lying down. 1 hour sitting up to watch the fire. You take turns. Everyone does. Even the eldest child gets a shift. The wind finds a new hole to whistle through. You stuff cloth into it. Not perfect. Better than nothing. The goat shifts in her corner, snorts, then settles. The pig sighs. You check the embers, still glowing. You add a pine cone. It flares up briefly, then fades. You lean back against the wall, feel the cold creep through it. You sing softly, just a hum. The melody doesn't matter. It's the rhythm, something to hang your breath on. The children sleep deeper. Your stomach growls. You ignore it. The snow thumps on the roof. You pray the thatch holds. A rat scurries across the beam, too high to swat. You let it pass. You shift. Your back protests. You shift again. Morning comes with no sunrise. Just a slow gray leaking into the room. You open the shutter an inch. Snow as far as you can see, drifted high. Covered the path. Buried the garden fence. You close it again. No one leaves today. The day is measured in wood burned and water boiled. You melt snow in a pot. Add a sprig of dried mint. It's a luxury. You use it anyway. The children play quietly with carved animals. The dog sleeps in the warmest spot, belly up. You patch a hole in your tunic. The needle is dull, your fingers colder. But you get it done. Someone sneezes, you pretend not to notice. Night comes again. Another fire. Another watch. The same wind. Louder now. You dream of summer. Of sun on bare arms. Of breezes that smell like grass, not iron. You wake up when the goat nuzzles your hand. She's cold too. You pull her closer. The snow doesn't care who you are. Peasant, priest, farmer, child. It falls on everyone the same. But tonight the fire still burns, the roof still holds, the walls still stand, and so do you. The snow hasn't melted, not even a little. It has settled now, a thick white sheet drawn over the world like the closing of a book. Everything outside is muffled. The path to the well has vanished. The chicken coop looks like a lumpy ghost. Even the trees bend beneath the weight, their branches groaning with frost. You stay inside. Most days you step out for firewood or to check the goat. But not now. Not when the snow is knee-deep and the wind bites through wool like it's parchment. So you work indoors. Everyone does. You start with rope. Braiding strands of hemp, tightening each twist with fingers that grow stiff too fast. The fibers scrape your skin. By nightfall, your knuckles will be raw, but it's something. You'll trade it later. Rope always holds value. Your spouse darns a pair of socks. Thick wool patched 3 times already. The thread doesn't match. It never does. The eldest child carves something from a block of soft pine. It might be a spoon. It might be a duck. You don't ask. You let them shape the silence. The littlest one plays with the dog's ears. He tolerates it barely. The fire sputters. You feed it another log. There is a rhythm to snowed-in days. Slow, tight, necessary. You sort beans. Pick out the ones that cracked or turned. It's mindless work. And that's the point. It keeps the hours moving. You sew a patch onto your tunic. Elbow torn again. Same spot as last month. You use a square of cloth from an old apron. It doesn't match. You sigh. Your spouse hums. Not a song, just a sound. Something to chase back the silence. You nod in time. Outside, the sky stays pale, as if the sun forgot to rise today. Historians wonder if peasant homes ever had windows. You smile. You have one. It's a hole covered in oiled cloth. It lets in light and keeps out wind, sort of. You wipe away the frost on the inside. Your breath refreezes it in seconds. You hang herbs from the beams. Thyme, rosemary, lavender if you were lucky at the last trade. Not just for flavor, but to keep the air smelling like something other than bodies and smoke. They sway slightly, even without breeze. You wonder how long until spring. No one says it aloud, but you're counting the days. Not with a calendar, just with bones. You feed the fire again. The goat needs water. You heat snow in a pot. It takes forever. The metal groans against the flame. You carry it over, careful not to spill. She drinks quickly, eyes half closed. You scratch her behind the ear. She leans in. The pig snores. A spider builds a web in the corner. You let it. You repair a broom. The handle split. You bind it with twine. It'll last a few more weeks. Later you grind oats, slowly. The stone wheel is stubborn. Your shoulders ache. But you get enough for a thin porridge. You stir it over the fire. Add dried apple, a pinch of salt. The scent is faint but warm. You divide it evenly. Everyone eats in silence. A pop from the fire. Sparks leap. One lands on your sleeve. You pat it down fast. No harm done. The dog raises his head, looks at you, then sleeps again. You take out a piece of leather, start to soften it. You'll make new soles for the boots. The old ones are splitting. If the meltwater gets in, you'll freeze from the toes up. You use a bone needle and thick cord. Every stitch is a struggle, but you've done this before. You think of your neighbor down the hill. His roof caved last winter. He never rebuilt it. Moved in with his sister's family. 7 people in one room. You think of the church bell. You haven't heard it in days. Probably snowed in too. You glance at the candle stub. It's half gone. You'll save the rest for emergencies. Like when the fire finally dies. But not tonight. Tonight it still burns. You stretch your back. Feel every joint complain. The children curl up with the dog. The youngest snores softly. You add another log. The wind howls outside. It rattles the shutter. You brace it with a stool. You sit down. Wrap yourself in the cloak. You sip hot water. No tea. Just heat. You close your eyes for a moment. Your thoughts drift to planting, to digging rows, to the smell of turned earth. Then the wind slams into the house again. You open your eyes. Still winter. Still here. Still breathing. The fire is low. Embers only. You roll from your straw pallet knees, stiff back, complaining. It's early. The sky outside isn't blue yet, just a dull gray smear behind the frost-covered window cloth. You don't stretch. No point. There's no softness in this morning. You poke at the coals with an iron rod. They glow weakly. You add bark and kindling. Blow gently. Smoke curls up before the flames catch. Slowly, the orange returns. You feel it first in your fingers, then your face. The dog stirs. He yawns without sound. Just a wide mouth, teeth flashing, tongue curled. Then he curls back into the warmth of a blanket he claimed last week. You nod at him. You are alone for now. The others sleep. That's good. It means quiet. It means you can think. You open the shutter an inch, just enough to see. Snow, yes, but crusted now, hard on top, the kind that crunches when stepped on, the kind you can walk over if you're light enough. If. You shut it again, you put on your boots. The soles are stiff. You flex them until they creak. You go outside. Your breath smokes in the air. Trees stand black and frozen. The barn leans slightly heavy with snow on one side. You kick the door open. The hinges protest. Inside, the goat shuffles. The pig stares. You feed them first. Then you gather eggs. Just one today. Still warm in your palm. You pocket it. Back inside, the house smells like sleep. Damp wool, ash, a faint sourness from the corners. You toss the egg to your spouse. They nod, crack it into the pot with oats. Stir. The children wake slowly. Hair-matted eyes squinting. You tell them to get moving. They grumble. You ignore it. Everyone eats. The youngest drops a spoon. It clatters. The dog perks up, then goes back to sleep. Outside again. You shovel the path to the well, 1 foot at a time. Snow cracks and splits. Your arms ache, but you make it. The well is frozen. You break the crust of ice with the bucket. Lower it slowly. Pull. The rope groans. Water sloshes. Success. You fill the pots. Carry them back one at a time. You don't spill. Later, you fix the fence. 1 post leans. You brace it with stone. Not perfect. Better than nothing. By midday, you can see your breath less. The sun peeks out. Just a sliver of pale gold. It's almost warm. You chop more wood. The axe is dull. You keep swinging. The children play near the stream. Frozen solid. They skate with boots wrapped in cloth, laughing, slipping. For a moment it sounds like spring, but your eyes stay on the sky. Clouds are forming, low and gray, thick at the edges. You feel it in your bones. Storm's coming. You call the children back. No arguments. They know the tone. Inside you prepare. Fill buckets. Stack wood by the hearth. Reinforce the shutter. Check the roof for loose thatch. You cook early. A stew of dried peas, onions, carrot peel. Not much flavor. You add salt. Then a pinch of thyme from the beam. It helps. The dog gets broth. He laps it up with gratitude. The wind rises again. The shutter bangs. You bolt it. The fire blazes now. You fed it well. You all sit close. The storm begins with sleet, then snow, then wind that howls like something angry. It shakes the door, presses against the walls. You listen. No one talks. There is nothing new to say. The children sleep early. The dog, too. You and your spouse stay awake longer, watching the fire, listening. You speak quietly, about nothing, about everything, about the food left in the cellar, about the goat's limp, about the time the tree fell on the smithy roof 2 winters ago. Normal things, memory things. The house creaks, the beams shift, still holding. You check the corners for leaks, dry for now. You place the last log on the fire. It hisses, then catches. You sit back. Let your eyes close. Outside, the storm screams. Inside, the flames murmur. You sleep with one hand near the iron rod. Just in case. Morning doesn't break so much as seep in. A dim gray light spreads across the room like a slow spill. You open your eyes. The fire is nearly out. Just a few coals red and tired. You sit up. Your back pops. You stretch carefully. The wind has stopped. That silence again. The deep kind. The kind that makes your ears ring. You stand. Move slowly. Your feet cold through the straw. You check the shutter. It holds. Barely. You open it. Snow. Everywhere. Heaped against the door. Drifted high against the barn. The woodpile is buried. The fence. Gone. Just a faint bump under white. You shut the shutter. You boil water. Takes longer today. The chimney's clogged again. You'll climb up later. After. Breakfast is thin. You split a crust of bread into 5 pieces. Add a little oat mash, a dried apple slice if you're lucky. The children eat quietly. The youngest picks at crumbs. You tell them to chew slowly. The dog watches, doesn't beg, just stares. The stew pot is nearly empty. You scrape the sides, add water, herbs, simmer. It'll stretch another day. The pig snorts from her corner. The goat stomps once, restless. You gear up. 3 layers, wool over linen, a second pair of socks, mittens patched and repatched, a hood drawn low. You go outside. The snow reaches your thighs. Each step is a chore. You head for the barn. Open the door. The roof's held, just barely, a few broken slats. You set them aside. You feed the animals. Water them with slush from your coat. They drink slow. You scratch the goat's ears. She closes her eyes. You grab a shovel. Start digging. Path to the privy. Path to the woodpile. The snow resists. Heavy wet. You pause. Catch your breath. The wind starts again. Not loud. Just enough to remind you it's not over. You go inside. The warmth feels like a blessing, like something earned. You sit by the fire, feet bare. Steam rises from your socks. You rotate them slowly. The dog licks your hand. You let him. Your spouse repairs a basket, willow strips, bent and bound. The eldest child rewinds the rope, organizes tools. The youngest draws in the ash with a stick. Circles, stars, a cow. You let them. You boil pine needles. Add a drop of honey. It helps the lungs. Someone coughs. You listen. Deep shallow. You nod. Just dry. For now. Historians still argue how peasants managed health care in winters like this. Some say herbalists visited homes. Others think most people relied on prayers and luck. You lean toward luck. Prayers help the ears more than the fever. You check your fingers. Dry. Cracked. A few bleeding at the corners. You rub them with fat. Wrap them in cloth. You mend your spouse's sleeve. Stitch tight. Small. Enough to hold until spring. The wind knocks again. You ignore it. You light a candle. Let it burn slow. Just 1 hour. You boil water for washing. Everyone takes turns. Cloth to face, neck, hands, no soap, just warmth. It matters. Later you check the chimney. Climb to the roof. Carefully. The ladder wobbles. The snow shifts. You scrape ice. Dislodge soot. Cough. A pigeon watches from the eaves. You nod at it. Inside again. The fire roars. The smell of pine fills the room. The children roast beet slices on sticks. Laugh when one catches fire. You don't scold them. Laughter is rare in a house this cold. The dog sneezes. The stew thickens. You eat. The wind calms. The world grows quiet again. You listen. You breathe. You endure. The next morning you step outside with a wooden spoon in one hand and a broom in the other. One for stirring the oats, one for brushing snow off the roof ledge before it drops on someone's head again. The sky is clear for once, pale blue, almost white, like someone tried painting the heavens, but ran out of color. The sun is low, weak, and stubborn. You feel no heat from it, only the guilt of false hope. You shuffle to the barn, listening to the creak of snow under your boots. It's not the deep, soft powder from early storms. It's the sharp crust that slices if you fall. You test each step, one at a time. Inside the barn, the goat has chewed through her tether again. You nod, half amused, half annoyed. You tie it tighter. She stares at you like you deserve this. Back at the house, your spouse has laid bones on the table. Not for soup, for answers. They're thin, clean, brittle. Chicken vertebrae, rabbit jaw, sheep ribs. This is the time of year for signs. You watch quietly. They scatter the bones, studying where each lands. A rib near the door means a thaw may come early. A cracked vertebra points to trouble with animals. An old tooth under the table. Better feed the dog extra tonight. You don't believe all of it, but you don't laugh. Superstition and survival make strange bedfellows. Later you consult the almanac. It's a hand-copied thing passed down from your aunt. Ink-faded pages warped by smoke and use. Each month marked by signs and warnings. Beware the black frost in second moon. Plant rye after St. Walpurga weeps. You read aloud. The children half listen. One falls asleep face first into the blanket. You turn the page. There's a sketch of a squirrel. Mid-leap. Notes beside it say that if the tail twitches before snowfall, the wind will be sharp. If it curls to the left, prepare to bury something. You sigh. You saw a squirrel last week. Its tail did both. Still, the signs are worth watching. The pig refused to eat yesterday. That's one. The goat stood still in the wind for too long. That's another. You glance at the roof beam. A spider built a second web. Direction east. You nod. You stir the coals. The pot bubbles. The stew smells the same as always: root vegetables and resignation. Historians believe medieval almanacs were often based more on inherited habits than recorded science. And yet, over time, even bad guesses become patterns. And some patterns start to make sense. You sharpen your knife. Slowly. Each pass of the stone sounds like winter breathing. You run your thumb along the edge. Not too sharp. Sharp tools cut carelessly. Dull ones cut badly. You aim for the in-between. Your spouse hangs dried onions near the fire. They hiss softly in the heat. A drop of moisture drips into the flame. It spits. The children argue about nothing. Who sat where? Who took which blanket? You don't get involved. You let them bicker. Bickering is life. Bickering means warmth. Bickering means breath. You wrap your hands around a mug. Just warm water, but it's enough to feel something. You close your eyes. Count your blessings. 1, 2, maybe 4. You still have bread. Not much, but some. You still have wax for the candles. Not many, but enough. You still have kindling stacked under the eaves. Dry, stolen from the dead tree near the church. Speaking of which, you make the walk there in the early afternoon. The road is a tunnel of white. Trees sag over it like archways. Branches bare save for frost. You carry a bundle rope, eggs, dried herbs, a sort of tithe, a sort of trade. The church stands gray and hunched roof outlined with ice. The bell hasn't rung in weeks. The priest might be asleep, or frozen, or gone. But the door opens. Inside it's not warm, but it's not wind-cutting either. You kneel, say nothing, look at the worn stones, breathe in the thick air. Candles burn near the altar. You stare at one. Its wax has dripped into a puddle, cooled and hardened like a crusted tear. You leave your bundle in the corner. Someone nods at you from the shadows. Could be the priest, could be a farmer. Doesn't matter. You nod back. No one speaks. Words freeze in places like this. You return home before dusk. The dog greets you with a snort. You toss him the last crust from your coat pocket. He swallows it whole. The wind rises again, brushing against the thatch like fingers dragging along a drum. You light the fire higher tonight. The children are quiet now. Your spouse reads from a worn scroll of prayers, not because anyone expects divine intervention, but because rhythm matters. The cadence of hope is better than silence. You pull your chair closer to the hearth. Tomorrow you'll check the squirrel holes. Tonight, you just listen to the house breathe. The wind changes direction overnight. You wake to a steady hum against the back wall, low and constant, like the world itself is grinding its teeth. You pull the blanket tighter. There's no rush. No one moves quickly when the wind sounds like that. Eventually you rise. You test the floor with one foot. Cold, yes, but dry. No leaks. The roof held again. A small win. You shuffle to the hearth. Coals still glow. You feed them wood. A thin stick. Then a thicker one. Slowly the light returns. Orange on gray. You feel it in your fingers first. The dog is already awake. He sits like a statue watching the door, listening. You trust his ears more than your own. Your spouse is up next. They don't speak. Just light the kettle, stir the pot. Familiar gestures. You pass each other without looking. You both know the rhythm. Today is for repairs. The storm took a piece of the fence. You saw it yesterday half buried. Now the snow is softer, the air less sharp. Time to move. You wrap cloth around your face, pull your mittens tight. You nod at the dog. He follows. Outside everything is white, but not still. The snow is softening at the edges. It crunches differently. It gives when you step. You dig out the broken fence post. It leans like a tired man. You brace it with stone and lash. You'll need to replace it eventually, but not today. You check the barn. The goat's ear is nicked, probably caught on a nail. You clean it with warm water. Wrap it in cloth. She tolerates it. The pig grunts, rolls over. You refill the trough. The water freezes too fast. You sigh, break it again. You tie the barn door tighter. Too much wind last night. A hinge is loose. You wedge it with a stone. Then you head for the path. Today you go to the neighbor, not close, about 2 fields over through the woods. You bring a gift, a small pouch of dried turnip. Not much, but it shows intent. The woods are quiet. Bird tracks cross the snow. One feather lies alone near a stump. You keep walking. Halfway there you see smoke, thin, controlled. They're home. You knock once, then again. The door creaks open. Their eyes are tired. Yours probably are too. You trade no words at first. You just hand over the pouch. They nod. Step aside. Inside the fire is going. Low, but steady. They have no children. Just the two of them. They offer you tea. Hot water with pine and ash bark. It tastes like old wood and honesty. You talk slowly in small words. Their goat didn't make it through the storm. Their woodpile is low. You nod. You offer to bring extra. They accept. No thanks. Just a grunt. You both understand. You walk home before sunset. The air is sharp now, but not cruel. Historians debate how much neighborly exchange mattered in medieval villages. Some say self-reliance ruled. Others point to the shared tasks, repairing walls, moving livestock, even burying the dead. The truth lies in moments like these. Quiet trades. Quiet returns. Back home, you tell your spouse. They pack up a bundle of sticks. You'll deliver it tomorrow. The children are playing a game. Stones and string, some kind of race. You don't ask for rules. The dog joins them. He wins. They protest. He barks once. The matter is settled. You prepare supper. Not stew today. Flatbread crisp and warm from the pan. You spread tallow across it. Sprinkle salt. It tastes like effort. After dinner, you mend a cloak. The seam is splitting near the shoulder. You thread the needle by candlelight. Your eyes blur. You keep sewing. Your spouse sharpens the small blade. The children sleep early. Outside an owl hoots once. Then again. You listen. Owls mean mice. Mice mean holes. You check the corners. Tap the beams. Set a trap near the pantry. You hang the cloaks closer to the fire. Damp cloth is slow death. The dog curls under the table, one eye half open. The wind has calmed. The trees stand still. You blow out the candle. You whisper good night to no one in particular, and the dark closes softly around the house. Dawn comes late and pale, the kind of light that slips around the edges of the shutter rather than pushing through it. You open one eye, then the other. The fire has faded to ash and smoke, and the coals have cooled into quiet red sighs. You dress slowly. Everything smells like wool and soot. Your joints argue with every motion. One knee clicks. One shoulder doesn't lift as high anymore. You ignore them both. The dog is already awake, sniffing at the door. He turns to look at you, tail still, eyes alert. You listen. No wind. No footsteps. Just the creak of the rafters and the shifting groan of snow settling. You crack the shutter. Just a sliver. Snow again. But light this time. Soft. Powdered. Peaceful in that way winter sometimes is before it reminds you who's in charge. You boil water. Oats again. A few crushed chestnuts added for variety. You let the children sleep longer. They were restless last night, talking in their sleep. One mumbled something about warm shoes. You didn't ask. You lace your boots. Today is for checking the stream. It's not far just beyond the southern tree line, a narrow thread of water that never quite freezes. You bring a pail and a stick just in case the ice near the edges is less trustworthy than it looks. You walk slowly. The snow here is soft but hides dips and fallen branches. You test each step. The stream is there, barely moving, thin ripples under a thin skin of ice. You break it gently. Fill the pail. The water is clear and cruelly cold. It stings through the wood. As you straighten up, you hear a crack behind you, just a branch falling under snow. You hope. You hurry back. At home, the children are awake. One is brushing the goat with a pine branch. She looks offended. The other is wrapping rags around the broom handle. Some kind of game apparently involving imaginary knights and straw dragons. You let them. The water is boiling again. You make tea bark and mint. It smells better than it tastes, but it warms your chest. You dig out the floor corner today, a spot near the door where the draft is strongest. Underneath the dirt and straw padding, you find a coin. Old bent, no longer worth much, but you hold on to it. A find is a find. Your spouse is mending a net. Not for fishing, for carrying kindling. The knots are tight, the weave slow. Their fingers bleed a little. They don't stop. You take out the box of remedies. It's small, a carved wooden box with a latch that squeaks. Inside, dried sage-old garlic, a feather wrapped in cloth and a waxy lump that might be beeswax, or just very old lard. You use the sage to cleanse the air. You hang it near the door and light the end. The smoke curls upward. The scent is sharp and earthy. The children wrinkle their noses. You tell them it's for protection. They believe you. Or they pretend to. You sit and carve a spoon. Pine soft and fragrant. The blade slips once and nicks your thumb. You suck the blood and keep going. Spoons are useful. And when they break, you make more. That's the rule of winter. Nothing is permanent. Everything breaks. But everything can be made again. You think about the stories your grandfather used to tell, about winters so long they froze the church bells solid, about wolves so bold they came to the door and knocked. You've never seen a wolf. But the stories remain. Historians debate whether wolves were truly a danger to medieval villagers or more of a symbol fear given fur. Some say real attacks were rare. Others believe entire herds disappeared under a full moon. You believe the second one, not because it's more likely, but because it feels truer. You check the fence again, reinforce the gate latch. The wood groans under your grip. You build a small cairn by the entrance, just 5 stones stacked high. Not for anything practical, just to remind yourself where the path used to be. It helps. You sort the firewood, count the logs. Enough for 3 more days if you ration. 5 if you're careful. You'll need to collect more tomorrow. Your hands ache at the thought. The youngest child shows you a drawing on the inside of the shutter. A house, a tree, a sun. The tree has red berries. The sun is smiling. You nod. You hang a dried apple slice near the door. An offering. a habit. No one remembers who started it, but the slice always goes up. And if it falls, something usually goes wrong. You listen to the wind again, still soft, still behaving. Night comes sooner than you expected. You light a candle. You boil the stew again. Add breadcrumbs. It thickens. You eat. You sleep. You do not dream. You wake before the sun. Again. It's not habit, not really. It's survival. The fire's nearly gone out, just a red vein in the ashes. You nudge it with a stick. Feed it the smallest splinters from the kindling bundle. The flame rises reluctantly like a child pulled from bed. Outside there's no sound. Not wind, not birds, not even the groan of trees shifting. It's the kind of silence that presses against the eardrums, dense and absolute. You dress with care, layer by layer. 2 tunics, the woolen one over the patched linen. Breeches. Wraps for the legs. Boots laced with leather cord, stiff from cold. Then the coat. Heavy smelling of tallow smoke and damp straw. Today is for wood. You've known this for days. The pile is too low. The good logs are gone. What's left are splinters and twigs. You can't boil a meal with twigs. You take the axe. Not sharp, not dull. Familiar. The handle worn smooth by years of use. The blade holds an edge if you respect it. You sling it over your shoulder. The woods are half a mile east. You know the path by memory, not sight. It's buried, of course. A field of white soft enough to trap the careless, firm enough to tempt the overconfident. You walk slowly. The dog comes too uninvited as always. The trees rise in clumps, bent and bowed beneath snow. A few dead ones still stand gray and naked bark flaking. These are the ones you want. You test each one with a push. Listen for the crack, the shift, the brittle resistance that says, "Take me." You swing. The axe thunks, bites deep. A pulse travels up your arm. You step back, swing again and again. It falls with a sigh, not a crash, just a slow descent into powder. You strip the limbs, pile the branches. You'll drag them home in bundles. No cart, not in this snow. It takes hours. You keep working. By noon, your fingers are numb. You flex them inside your mittens, shake the blood back into them, blow on them. It helps a little. You eat a strip of dried meat, hard as old leather. You chew until it stops fighting. You drag the first bundle home. Halfway there, your left boot slips. Your knee hits ice. You curse under your breath, not at the fall, but at the time it costs. You arrive with the sun already leaning westward. You unload, then return. Another bundle, then another. 3 trips before dark. Your spouse takes the wood with a nod. No words needed. The children stack it against the hearth wall. You sit. Drink hot water. It tastes like heat. That's enough. The dog curls near your feet. His fur is wet from snow. He smells like mud and effort. You rest your hands on your knees. The axe leans nearby. You don't clean it yet. You will. Later. Your spouse sings softly as they stir the pot. Just a hum, really. No words. No melody you recognize. Just the sound of continuity. You think about the others. Your neighbor, the one with no goat. You'll check on them tomorrow. Bring them a few logs. Maybe a pinch of salt if you can spare it. Historians still argue whether medieval villagers truly practiced this kind of mutual aid regularly, or if it's a romantic overlay. But you've lived through enough winters to know no one survives alone for long. You mend a sock. The wool is thin. Your fingers prick themselves more than once. You press each drop of blood into the hem, a sign that you still feel something. The youngest child brings you a feather. From the path, they say. It's white tipped with gray, probably a pigeon, or something that was a pigeon. You tuck it behind the beam. You hang your coat above the fire. You wash your hands in the basin. The water is gray with ash. Your skin cracks at the knuckles. You smear tallow over the wounds. The air inside is thick with stew and sweat and smoke. You lean back in the chair. Your spouse finishes cooking. You eat in silence. No one says much after a wood day, not until the logs are stacked, not until the cold is chased back. Only then do you speak. Only then do you exhale. The sky is gray again, a hard, unyielding gray. No clouds, no shape, just a blanket of stone pressed over the world. You stare at it through the cracked shutter, watching your breath fog the wooden slats. Another day, another task. Today is for mending, not just socks or cloaks. Today is for the house. You begin with the door. The hinge moans each time it swings. You oil it with rendered fat and twist it back into place using a nail, a stone, and patience. The frame creaks but settles. You test the latch. It holds. Good enough. Next is the wall. A draft crept in last night, cold enough to kiss the floorboards. You find the seam near the base where the plaster gave up months ago. You mix more from ash straw and a bit of clay dug up from behind the barn during the last thaw. You smear it with a flat stick, pack it tight, smooth it down. It dries into a gray crust. The dog watches from his corner, not judging, just always watching. The children are playing a game in the corner stones and string again. This time the rules involve shouting and pretending the floor is lava. You tell them to quiet down. They don't, but the volume dips. Your spouse is boiling linens. A ritual more than a need. But it helps. The smell of hot water and cloth fills the space. Cleanliness is relative in a home with one basin and one rag, but the effort means something. You check the beams next. Winter is cruel to wood. The roof creaks with every gust. You test each support, knock it with the hammer's flat side. One sounds hollow. You wedge it with a stump. Not pretty, but firm. Historians debate whether peasant homes were truly drafty, sagging hovels or better kept than we imagine. Excavated foundations suggest a mix, some tight, warm, and well-kept, others barely more than lean-tos. You like to think yours is the former. You've worked too hard to settle for less. The ceiling is next. One corner shows signs of damp. You poke it with a stick. It holds, but barely. You'll need to patch it come spring. For now, you spread more straw beneath it, just in case. The stovepipe rattles once. A bird, maybe. Or wind. You climb up carefully, crawling through the crawl space over the rafters. You check for nests. Just soot and wind. You crawl back down, brushing black from your sleeves. You stretch your back. The bones snap into place like firewood breaking. You sit and eat a piece of bread, dry with a smear of salt pork fat. It crumbles in your hand. You catch most of it. The light fades early today. You work by candle again. You inspect the tools. The scythe hasn't been touched in weeks. You clean the blade oil, the curve, check the grip. The handle is dry. You wrap it in cloth soaked in tallow. The shears still cut. You test them on a bit of old linen. A clean slice. That'll do. The saw rusted. You scrape it with a shard of pumice. It flakes reluctantly. You oil it too. The bucket's handle has cracked. You drive in a new nail. It wobbles, but holds. Maintenance is worship in this house, not of gods, but of continuity. You glance at the shutter. A crow sits outside black against gray. It stares, then flaps off. You close the latch a little tighter. The youngest child brings you a broken doll. One eye missing, you sew on a button. It doesn't match, but she smiles. You light a second candle. The dog whines once. You open the door and let him out. He trots into the snow, does his business, trots back in, shakes himself off. You wipe the floor with the last clean rag. You brush ash from the hearth, push the coals forward, feed it 3 logs. It hisses, then crackles. Supper is thick tonight. Beans mostly. A few scraps of dried onion. You eat slowly. Everyone does. Chewing fills time. The children fall asleep in a pile of blankets, one with a hand on the dog's back, the other curled around the patched doll. You clean the dishes, not many. 1 pot, 4 bowls, 4 spoons. Water, ash, a cloth. You dry them by the fire. You sit again, hands still. No movement now, just heat and breath. You glance at the beam above the hearth, 5 notches carved there. 1 for each deep frost survived. You scratch in another, shallow at first, then deeper. 1 more down. The morning snow is thick again, not falling, just waiting. A heavy quilt draped over the world. You press open the door and it resists snow drifted tight against the threshold. You push harder. It gives with a groan. You step outside. The air bites your face, cold enough to steal your breath for a second. You blink. The sun is just a pale blur behind a sky the color of pewter. Today is for the animals. You trudge to the shed. The chicken coop leans slightly now. The snow piles on one side make it lopsided. You wipe the latch free with your sleeve and step inside. The hens blink up at you. 2 cluck. 1 flaps. No eggs today, not in this cold. You toss them a handful of grain, mostly husks. They peck half-heartedly. You clean the worst of the droppings from the corners with a stick. It freezes to the wall in streaks, and you chip it off with the blade of a trowel. The goat next. She waits in her pen breath, puffing white from her nostrils. You rub her head. She butts your arm, a gentle reminder that she's still in charge here. You refill her hay. Frozen at the edges, but she'll dig to the good stuff. You pour warm water into her trough. She drinks with heavy gulps. Back inside, you remove your coat. The heat from the hearth is welcome, though not generous. Your spouse is grinding grain. Slowly, the motion steady circular like a prayer. The stone wheel sings quietly against the wooden plate. You check the root cellar next. The door creaks. Inside it smells of damp earth and old apples. You lift the cloth from the barrels. Potatoes, carrots, a few shriveled turnips. You inventory aloud. Your spouse nods without looking up. You count 1 sack of flour half full, a second sack of dried peas, 3 smoked fish hanging from the rafters like limp gray pendulums. Historians note that winter food stores in medieval homes were often inadequate. Malnutrition wasn't a rarity, it was the rhythm of the season. A well-stocked cellar didn't mean full bellies. It meant fewer children coughing blood by February. You take what you need for today. 1 potato, half a carrot, a pinch of salt, a cup of peas. You close the door. Press the latch until it clicks. You wash your hands in the basin. The water is near freezing. The sensation leaves your fingers red and numb. You hold them over the fire until the ache fades. You peel the vegetables. The skin curls away in thick gray spirals. You save them. Tomorrow's soup will welcome them. The children are still asleep. One coughs. You pause. Then they turn over. You keep working. Outside, the snow has turned to sleet. You can hear it tapping against the shutters. A slow ticking sound. Like time. You take down the herbs hanging above the window. Dried bundles of thyme and yarrow. You crush them between your fingers. They release scent, faint but persistent. You add them to the pot. You stir. The mixture thickens slowly. You add a scrap of salted pork. Barely a cube. Just enough to remind the pot of flavor. Your spouse stops grinding, rubs their shoulder. You trade places. The wheel is rough, the rhythm easy to lose. You keep turning. The grain turns to powder. Flour gathers in the bowl beneath. You switch again. Your spouse kneads the flour into a thick paste. No yeast. Not today. Just flat cakes pressed by hand and baked on a stone beside the coals. Lunch is ready. 4 bowls, 4 spoons. You eat slowly, always slowly. You chew until the flavors release themselves. The youngest says the stew tastes like memory. You smile, but only inside. The sleet turns back to snow. You patch a sleeve with the leftover linen. Your spouse braids cord from frayed rope. The dog dreams by the fire paws, twitching. You open a small pouch and count the beads inside. 10 red, 5 blue, 3 black. No reason. Just something to do with your fingers. Your oldest child asks about the spring fair. You say, "If the snow's gone by then." They nod, not believing you. The day slips away. You boil water again. This time with bark and dried mint. You drink in silence. The snow falls thicker now. The shutters rattle once, then again. You check the latch. Still holding. Still enough. The light has changed. It's weaker. You notice it before you open your eyes. A kind of quiet gray that leaks in around the shutters without promise. You sit up slowly. Your joints resist. Your back talks back. The fire is out. Only a few red coals remain buried under gray ash. You crouch by the hearth, blow gently, feed in dry splinters one by one. It catches reluctantly. The first flame is always the hardest. The others are still asleep. You move without sound. Today is for salt. The last block is almost gone. Chipped down to a corner the size of your palm. You need more, and that means trade. And trade means walking. You pack slowly a few beads, a pair of woven mittens, and a small pouch of dried herbs. Barter is inconsistent. Salt is constant. You pull on boots, wrap your cloak. The snow outside is deep again. You press into it. It groans beneath each step. The air is clean, sharp, empty. You carry a small satchel. The strap cuts into your shoulder by the second mile. You follow the frozen path east over the ridge, down past the black trees, through the hollow with the leaning stone where owls nest in warmer months. You pass 3 boundary markers half buried in snow. The world looks endless, but you know the way. After 2 hours, you see the hut. Smoke from the chimney. A bent shape at the doorway, an old man with no teeth and one working eye. He nods at you like you're late, though you've never made an appointment. You show him the goods. He fingers the mittens, sniffs the herbs, bites one bead testing for fraud. He says nothing. Then he disappears inside. You wait. When he returns, he brings a block of salt, rough gray flecked with grit, heavy. It smells like damp stone. He drops it into your satchel without a word. Transaction complete. You nod. He nods. You leave. Historians still debate the consistency of barter systems in isolated peasant economies. Salt was one of the few essentials that could demand fair exchange year-round, more stable than coin, more desirable than iron during winter months. You trudge home slower. The salt is heavy. The wind has picked up. A storm is coming, but not yet. You count your steps. 100. Then another. Then another. By the time you reach the village, your hands are trembling. Not from fear, from fatigue. Your spouse opens the door before you reach it, takes the satchel, unwraps the salt like it's treasure. You sit. You say nothing for 5 full minutes. Then you remove your boots. The children cluster around the salt. One of them licks it just once. You don't stop them. Your spouse scrapes a flake into the stew for tomorrow. Another onto a plate of boiled barley. The taste transforms, just slightly. Enough. You take a moment to sharpen the small blade you carry. It doesn't need it, but the motion soothes you. You hang your cloak by the fire. The melting snow hisses. The warmth creeps back into your bones. The salt sits in the center of the table, wrapped in linen reverently. Later, as night falls, you tell the children about the trade. You make it sound longer than it was. Add in a fox sighting, maybe a howling wind that wasn't quite there. They listen wide-eyed. You finish with a simple truth. We have what we need. They nod. Not because they believe you, because they want to. You sleep deeper that night. The fire stays lit. The shutters don't rattle. And the salt, that rough gray block, waits silently on the table, glinting in the firelight like a memory of the sea. The freeze comes overnight. You wake to the sound of it. Not wind, not footsteps. Just the brittle cracking hush of the world hardening in place. Every breath curls white in the air. The basin water is a solid disk. The shutters are rimmed with frost from the inside. You dress with haste, fingers clumsy in the cold. Every layer counts. Wool under linen, fur over that. You wrap your feet twice. Still, the chill bites through. Outside, even the snow is silent. It doesn't crunch. It groans. The sky is white on white. The edges of the world vanish. Today is for finding warmth. Anywhere. You begin by feeding the fire. Every stick is precious, every log a calculation. You slide an ember into the small side oven and place a pan of oats over it. The last scoop. You stir slowly. The oats thicken. You divide them carefully. A spoon for each child, then one for yourself. They eat quickly. The warmth does more than fill the belly, it slows the shivering. You hang blankets over the door, over the windows, over the cracks near the floor. You stuff wool scraps into the beams. Every gap is the enemy. Your spouse rubs wax into the boots. The children layer on clothes and then curl under pelts with the dog. He doesn't seem cold. He never does. Outside, the animals are quiet. You step into the goat's shelter, break the ice in her trough with a hammer. She nudges your shoulder in thanks. Or protest. You shovel snow away from the chicken coop's edge. It's too high. If it buries the air vents, they'll suffocate. You clear a path. The chickens cluck with sleepy outrage. Inside again, you rub your hands raw. The tips have gone red. You hold them over the fire until they hurt. You tell the children a story. Not a happy one. Not scary either. Just a story about a tree that outlasted 10 winters because it grew low, bent to the wind, and never reached too high. They listen. Then fall asleep against your side. Your spouse mends gloves with sinew and a curved needle. Every motion exact. You open the chest. Count the logs. 6. That's it. You do the math. 2 today. 2 tomorrow. 2 after. That leaves none. You pull on your cloak. Again. Today is not just for warmth. Today is for wood. Historians still argue whether most peasants had consistent access to firewood during deep winter. Forests were often under noble control and gathering fallen branches could be punished. Still, people found a way. You are one of those people. You trudge out with your sled. The rope cuts your palms. You follow the frozen stream east away from the known paths. You don't cut trees. You look for what has fallen. A branch buried in snow. A broken trunk with dry core. You carry a small axe, but it's not for cutting, it's for splitting. You find what you need. Mostly. Enough to fill the sled barely. The last piece is punky soft with rot. You take it anyway. The sun dips behind the haze. You turn back. The wind rises. By the time you return, your cheeks sting and your eyebrows are frosted, but the fire is still burning. The sled is unpacked. The wood is stacked. Not much, but enough. You melt snow for water. You add a bit of salt, then a root or two. Supper is hot. The shutters rattle once, then settle. Your spouse places a hot stone wrapped in cloth under the blankets. You all climb in. No one talks. The warmth is shared, stored, protected. One child coughs once, then goes quiet. You close your eyes. The fire cracks, and you rest. Not because it's comfortable, but because you've earned it. The wind shifts. You know before you open your eyes. The way it sounds against the shutters more restless now. Less like sleep, more like pacing. The air in the room is still. Your breath hangs above you, curling upward, then vanishing. You rise slowly, pulling the blanket with you. The dog watches you from the hearth. He doesn't move. Your boots are stiff with cold. You wrestle them on. Outside, the snow is changing again. It has begun to melt and freeze, melt and freeze, an armor of ice atop the powder. Each step cracks like glass. The morning light is thin. You squint at the southern edge of the yard where a line of thaw marks the roof's dripping edge. A trickle. Just one. It's not enough. You step to the shed. The door creaks loud enough to wake the trees. Inside, the tools hang like tired limbs. The shovel, the sickle, the rope. You count them, just to be sure. Then you haul the sled again, this time to the south slope, the place where the sun lingers longest. You check the snare lines. One has sprung. A rabbit, scrawny, but alive. You thank it under your breath. You snap its neck quick clean, the way your father taught you. You carry it home. You skin it outside bare-handed. The fur peels back reluctantly. You save it. Even now, it has value. Inside, you set a pot to boil. The children stir. One sits up, asks spring. Yet, you say nothing. Because no, it is not. It's the season of false thaws. The time when the air lies to you. When the snow melts just enough to promise change and then hardens again like iron. You don't trust it. Neither does your spouse. They sort the food stores again, methodically, like maybe the jars will rearrange themselves if stared at long enough. They don't. You eat in silence. The rabbit stew is thin, but it's meat. That's enough. You spend the day patching the roof where snow slid inside last night. One bundle of straw, 2 handfuls of pitch. The cold has a smell now. Damp wood, old ash, boiled cloth. You wrap your child's feet again. 3 layers of wool. Then wrap their hands. Then their head. They look like a sack of potatoes. You smile. Just a little. They frown. Too tight. You loosen the knots, only slightly. Historians often describe peasant children in winter as overbundled to the point of near immobility. But the alternative chill, blisters, frostbite, even death was worse. So they waddled, rolled, and fell warm and grumpy. You check the sky. It's clear. Too clear. That means cold. You double the firewood, just in case. At sunset, the chickens won't come down from the roost. You leave them there. You close the coop, bar it from the outside. The door groans. You groan louder. Inside, your spouse has started a game with the children. Pebbles and a cloth board. Simple rules. No one remembers who taught it first. You join for 1 round. You lose. They smile. You say it was on purpose. They don't believe you. The fire burns bright tonight. A good sign. Or not. Hard to say anymore. You go to the doorway and open it just an inch. You listen. The wind is still shifting. It has no direction. Just a restless swirl of noise that tastes like ice and warning. You close the door, latch it twice, and sit by the hearth. You warm your hands. One child dozes against your leg. The dog sighs. And in your head, you repeat a quiet phrase. Spring is a rumor. Until it isn't. The first crow returns. You hear it before you see it. A rough hollow call echoing across the morning stillness. It circles above the chimney once, twice, then lands awkwardly on the sloped roof, sending a cascade of loose snow tumbling into the yard. You stare at it. It stares back. Then it hops sideways as if to say, "Still here you are." You rise slowly from your bedroll, brushing loose straw from your tunic. The fire's gone out again. The coals are too cold to revive. You start fresh. The children are still wrapped in blankets, motionless, but not sleeping. There's a kind of stillness that belongs to people who are waiting for the world to change. Outside, the snow is melting almost. The top layer is crusted ice, but underneath, water runs in narrow threads like forgotten veins beneath skin. You poke at a drift with your boot. It doesn't collapse. It sags. Progress. You push open the door. The hinges complain. The path is visible now. Not clear, but visible. The old fence posts lean like exhausted men. A bird darts between them, feathered in dust and color. The season is thinking about changing, not deciding yet, just thinking. You nod. That's enough. You begin chores without urgency, each one slower than usual, not because of fatigue, because of habit. You chop kindling, not because you're out, because it feels right. You mend a strap on the sled. It might not be needed soon, but still. You mix flour and water, nothing else. It becomes a gluey paste. Your spouse uses it to patch a crack in the pantry wall. Cold air snakes in less now. The children play outside for the first time in days. They don't ask permission. You don't stop them. They fall, often crash into the slush, yell too loud, forget about the cold. The dog chases them once, then lies down in a puddle of sunlight and closes his eyes. The wind has changed. Now it smells of earth, of things underneath trying to surface. The snow is pocked with holes from dripping eaves. The shadows are shorter. The sky, still gray, holds a hint of blue near the edges. You gather eggs. 3 today. You don't tell anyone. You just add them to the shelf like they've always been there. Historians debate when winter truly ends in medieval climates. Was it the first bloom, the last frost, the return of birds? Or simply the moment people allowed themselves to believe in change? You choose none of those. For you, it ends now. Not with flowers, not with sunshine, but with a door left open a few minutes longer, with breath that no longer steams, with a patch of ground near the barn where snow has given up and mud has taken hold. That's spring enough. You sleep that night with one blanket less, and dream of fields, of turning soil, of hands in dirt and light in sky. Tomorrow will come, and it won't be warm, not yet. But it will come, and you'll meet it with both eyes open. You'll step into it slow and steady and ready. And now the snow is mostly gone. The fire burns low but steady. The house no longer sighs in protest. Even the wind outside has softened its voice, turning from threat to memory. You feel it now, don't you? That gentle release in your chest. That long, quiet exhale you didn't know you'd been holding. The kind that means you made it. Your body is still tired. That won't change overnight. But the deep ache of surviving winter has lifted just slightly, and with it the weight behind your eyes. The children sleep peacefully now, their feet warm, their bellies full. You hear the slow rhythm of their breathing, like waves lapping against the shore of something new. You smile in the dark, just a little. Outside the snowmelt drips. Not fast, not loud, but steady. A lullaby in droplets, a promise made in thaw. So close your eyes now. Let your shoulders fall. Let your hands unclench. Let your breath slow until it matches the rhythm of the world you've lived in, step by step, night by night. You don't have to do anything else. You're already here, still standing, still warm, still ready.